You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. We're going to give Chad just a second here to add the Facebook stream in and make sure that we're all good to go. And it looks like we've got green check marks across all platforms. Mile high hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, returning back from elk camp this week, Lance Sanderson. And joining me, as always, is my good friend and colleague. He's your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst. He is one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, long time since we got to sit down and chat, man. How you doing? How was everything last week? I haven't got a chance to watch the shows yet, but I want to check them out.
Dude, everything's perfectly fine. The new season of Mandalorian started today. I am super excited about that. Watched the episode first thing this morning. I actually kind of ignored work a little bit, but that's whatever, man. Just to watch the Mandalorian. Super excited for the season. But yeah, last couple weeks it went really good. I mean, getting Carl on, it's always good to have Carl on. Yeah, absolutely love picking his brain about things. Smart dude. I love chatting with him in our private chats. And then James last week too. He brought something that was definitely fresh with his accent to the podcast. I think it was awesome having him on, and definitely want to get him on again sometime in the future, especially near the draft, because I love the work that he does on the draft and everything, talking to him about it and stuff. But of course, I'm glad you're back. Did you have a successful hunting trip?
No, we actually did not. We got one tag out of 6 filled, unfortunately. Just a lot of people up there right now, and everything's pushing around a little bit too hard, so we'll have to go back up here probably in December. I'll miss another show for that. But no, we had a lot of fun, had probably a few too many adult beverages, and ate some really, really banger food, but just unable to pull some triggers, which is not a way that you want to go about your elk camp. You want to be able to pull some triggers on something.
So you could always just do what my grandfather always joked about, is at elk camps and stuff like that, is if you just see somebody else with theirs, just go take that.
That's fair. Fortunately for us, we don't actually have to do like a camp like that. We have a cabin up on the mountain, so it's actually really nice. There's a TV in there. We actually have indoor plumbing and whatnot. So we're living in the Ritz up on the mountain and staying out of the elements. It was cold. It was really, really cold, and the wind was just screaming. In fact, I'll have to send you a video. There's one. The wind was blowing about 65 miles an hour directly in our face. And I had a rock. I picked up a rock and I dropped it, and the wind was blowing so hard that it blew the rock sideways. It was like you couldn't hear me talking or anything. It was that bad. But no, it's fun to be back in the saddle and fun to be back doing the show. Amazing to be back with our wonderful fans and everybody that's joining us in the chat right now. Miller707 Champ, what's up, dude? Chase, David Fang, Mundugus, what's up, man? It's been a long time since I've seen your name in our chat. CC James, what's going on, my dude? Bawana's not going to be here tonight, everybody, so wish well to Bawana and what he's got going on. Stu Meat, Gary Mahal. Guys, we got an amazing show planned out for you. We're going to talk about the Broncos defense and how they are not getting nearly the credit that they deserve. But before we do that, I want to break into some matters of business really fast. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. And the easiest way to do that is to find me at Sanderson MHH, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, follow the podcast at DVDD_pod. While you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle. That's some other accounts. The easiest way to keep in tune with what's going on. Any breaking news and analysis articles from your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities. Also, it's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Huddle Up Podcast Network in general. And guys, just want to make a quick thing here. Tonight's episode is brought to you in part by sportsbetting.com, sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. Head on over to sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. There are sharp odds there and low juice. They have in-house bookmakers. They're not a third-party provider of their odds, which means that there's reduced juice and they have the best prices available. There's a hassle-free bonus on a one-time rollover, meaning that the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time. Other sites range from 5 to 30 times. They have 24/7 live customer support, and there's always a real person inside the United States. But here's the kicker. At sportsbetting.com, you guys can get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000 on not just one bet, but all of your bets. You play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com will cover 100% up to the difference, up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So guys, head on over to www.sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle, sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle, and capitalize on that risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Listen up, Broncos country. Coors Hard Seltzer is not your average seltzer. Rooted in Coors' long history of sustainability, their brand was inspired by a generation that wants to do good in the world, that has a mission to restore America's rivers. Never before has it been so easy to make an impact and make a difference and do good in the world. Coors Hard Seltzer is launching the world's easiest volunteer program. Whatever you're doing, simply by cracking open a can of Coors Hard Seltzer, you're volunteering. Our waterways, guys, they are at risk. 80% of America's rivers are drying up, and through a partnership with Change the Course, Coors Hard Seltzer is helping to protect and restore America's rivers. Each 12-pack of Coors Hard Seltzer restores 500 gallons of fresh water to U.S. rivers. Wrap your brain around that. And the communities that depend on them. It's so important. The results? 1 billion, that's with a B, gang, gallons of water restored to 16 river basins across the U.S., including the Colorado River. And that's just year one. And here's what's great about Coors Hard Seltzer. 4 refreshing flavors, 1 cool cause. Enjoy naturally flavored black cherry, mango, lemon lime, and grapefruit. And the specs are in, gang. Coors Seltzer is 4.5% ABV and only 90 calories.
Chad, I got to say, for last Sunday's slate of NFL games, I picked up a Coors Hard Seltzer and Mango. Loved it. This week, I picked up a Coors Hard Seltzer and Black Cherry. Loved it even more. So, guys, whether you want to support the cause or like the flavors, you won't be disappointed with a Coors Hard Seltzer.
Amen. So join the world's easiest volunteer program by simply drinking Coors Hard Seltzer. You can volunteer to restore America's rivers. You buy Coors Hard Seltzer, you help restore 500 gallons of water into America's rivers. It is that simple. Visit CoorsSeltzer.com to find Coors Seltzer near you. That's CoorsSeltzer.com.
For every 12-pack sold through 8/31/2021, Coors will purchase services from Change the Course to restore 500 gallons of fresh river water. Details at CoorsSeltzer.com. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Now, let me pull this back to where we're supposed to be so you guys can see our faces. Eric, there's a lot of very interesting discussion going on about the Broncos offense, and rightly so. I mean, Drew Lock's not necessarily playing the best football. The Broncos are only averaging, 16, I think it is, points per game with Drew Lock under center right now. It's not good. But also on the flip side of that, the Broncos are still remaining competitive in large part to their stellar defense. Now, Eric, I want you to take this away for just a minute. What is the biggest thing to this Broncos defense that is making them so successful?
Well, their coverage stepped up. Their secondary did. Yeah. They're playing better. I think that when watching the last few weeks, it definitely seems that Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons have kind of gone back to their normal roles that they had last year, which for the first few games, it seemed like it was kind of switched, which was really weird to me. And it just caused a lot of issues. And then AJ Boye coming back, he kind of helped solidify it and everything. And them playing better in the secondary is able to allow them to blitz more, which is something that I know that we talked about a few weeks ago, is that you just got to find that balance. But Alexander Johnson, I mean, one thing that he does extremely well is come as a blitzer. I mean, it's why he's used as a blitzer as often as he is. And just in order to do that, you got to be able to cover well, because you can't take away from your coverage unit if you're not doing well, plain and simple. And they stepped it up, able to blitz. It's pretty bang with that. And I mean, another part too is just to talk about him is Michael Ojemudia, man. Yeah, he's been playing ever since that week 2 game. He's been, I mean, he allowed quite a few catches the last 2 weeks, but I mean, against the New England Patriots, I think he allowed like 4 or 5 catches, but he forced 2 fumbles. One of them, the ball went out of bounds, so they weren't able to recover it. And then against the Chiefs, he was just quick to come up and make the tackle. I think there was one big play he allowed. Might be mistaken on that. But he's just been playing really good football. He's keeping plays in front of him. He's not letting himself get beat over the top. And he's executing Vic Fangio's scheme perfectly, which I know you actually have a stat that helps signify just how much this Broncos defense is living up to doing exactly what Vic Fangio wants them to do.
Not exactly sure which one you are referring to.
The yards per attempt against it.
Oh, the yards per attempt, the average depth of target against them. This is actually an amazing statistic here, and I know that Nick Kendall actually likes this statistic to use a lot, especially for when he's scouting wide receivers. The average depth of target in the passing game. Now, the Broncos right now, with especially what Vic Fangio likes to do, is he doesn't like to get beat down the field, especially on the boundaries. If you get beat down the field on the boundaries, that's a big no-no in Vic Fangio's defense. What he likes to do is he likes to allow the short stuff up front, rally up and make a tackle. So as far as the average depth of target allowed by the Denver Broncos defense, 7.4 yards per attempt. That is the 6th best number in the NFL this season. Like you see a lot of the play action crossing route stuff like that, and it just drives you nuts because the teams will dink and dunk their way down the field, especially last year, and especially in critical situations where they're allowing these chunk plays to go over the middle and whatnot. But they're not letting these plays get beat over the top. They're not allowing any deep touchdowns. In fact, this Broncos defense as a whole is not allowing any touchdowns. If you take away any extra touchdowns scored by the opposing defense or special teams, meaning the kickoff return by Byron Pringle, and that the Broncos have allowed 2 pick sixes on offense, the Broncos defense has only allowed 13 total touchdowns this season. 13. There are 10 teams in the NFL this year already that have allowed 13 or more passing touchdowns as a whole, as a team, including the Atlanta Falcons, who have 20 or more right now. Then if you take away there's 5 teams in the NFL that have 10-plus rushing touchdowns allowed, including the Carolina Panthers and the Oakland Raiders, who both have 12. Like, the Broncos are not allowing a whole lot of points. It doesn't look like that, especially when you watch this Kansas City game, but you take away a pick six, you take away an onside kick at the end of the game where Brandon McMillan, it was just poorly covered, and the Chiefs returned it 21 yards and then scored a touchdown after that. And then the 103-yard kickoff return by Byron Pringle, that's 21 points, guys. You take 21 points off the board for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's 22 is what the defense actually allowed. 22 total points to the best offense in football. This defense is playing a lot better than people expect. Well, not necessarily expected, but they're playing a lot better than what they're given credit for.
Yeah, definitely. And not to talk about the offense or anything like that is a lot. I mean, obviously we all know about the injuries, and a lot of people are using that to excuse the offense, which, as I was saying, is I'm not going to get into that. But when you look at the injuries that the Broncos have been dealing with, it has been far more impactful on the defensive side of the ball. Yep. They lost Von Miller before the season started. They lost Jarrell Casey pretty early on. They lost A.J. Boye for a while. Then they lost Draymond Jones. They lost DeMarcus Walker. Their interior defensive line has been completely gutted, basically. I mean, Shelby Harris is really the only one who's played every game this season so far, and even he has been dinged up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah Tauchu's been out. Like, they have been so beat up on the defensive side of the ball, and they're still performing at this high level. So when you look at the offense and you compare it to the offense and their struggles, I understand they're a young offense, but losing Elijah Wilkinson, he wasn't that impactful in a negative way. I mean, it was a positive way, actually. DeMar Dotson was able to come in and stabilize the line and stabilize the right tackle play. Cortland Sutton, he's a big loss. No one can argue against that. Cortland Sutton is a huge, huge loss. Philip Lindsay missing some time, that's been pretty big. But it really is. It's the best argument for why they're struggling is it's a young offense, because you just can't use the injury excuse. This defense is just so beat up, and they're performing at such a high level. Everyone's doing their jobs. Everyone's doing their roles. I mean, it's running on all cylinders, really, so to speak, which just makes you wonder, how much better could this defense be if those injuries didn't happen?
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right on that. Losing A.J. Boye, it really kind of tested the cornerback depth. But if you take a look at it, the Broncos, even without A.J. Boye for 3 weeks, they've still allowed the 5th fewest passing yards in the NFL this season, 1,381 total passing yards. Like, They've only allowed 8 total passing touchdowns. That's the 3rd fewest in the NFL. Like, this defense is still playing at an amazing football. And one of the best ways to kind of highlight this, and especially in situational football, is third down percentage and red zone percentage. The Broncos right now have the 5th lowest third down conversion percentage against in the NFL, 5th lowest. They're at 29 out of 84, which is 34.5%. There are teams allowing over 60% on third down right now. If you want to go into the red zone, the fourth lowest red zone percentage, which means that teams are getting in the red zone and then scoring touchdowns. They've allowed 10 touchdowns on 21 red zone appearances, 47.6%, fourth lowest in the NFL. Like, if the offense could actually get something going and maintain some drives and hit some of these key plays, there's something I want to kind of elaborate on here in just a little bit if I get a chance to. But if the offense can keep some drives going and the special teams can step up, this defense is damn good enough to win them a lot of football games, guys. Like, this is another interesting statistic for you. This is per Pro Football Reference. The Broncos defense has the third highest starting field position against at the start of a drive in the NFL. Their average starting position on defense is the 33-yard line. If you're starting at the 33-yard line, a couple plays, bang, they're in field goal position. Like, you're already in negative field position there, even at the 33-yard line. Like, it takes 2 first downs. You're across the 50-yard line, and you're knocking on the door of kicking a field goal. And this team is still not allowing points on the board, period. 153 total points against, and if you take away 18 of that for the 3 touchdowns, the kick return for a touchdown, you take away the 2 interception returns or for touchdowns, that's 135 points. Take away 3 extra for the extra points after that, it's 132 points a game. Divide that by 6, 21 points a game is what the defense is allowing. That's a top 10 figure. Again, this team is a lot better defensively than anyone wants to give them credit for, because everyone's so focused on the struggles of the offense.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like everyone's is just focusing on the offense, and I understand it. I mean, offenses, they help you win games. I mean, obviously, duh. But is when you have performances like the Broncos did against the Chiefs, where their offense just wasn't clicking, and then you have those drops against the New England Patriots, of course, the offense is going to get a lot of attention and everything. And again, it's rightfully so. But you can't have that happen when you're ignoring how good the defense has been playing. I mean, even Malik Reed, who I've been obviously I've been very hard on him. If you guys have read my works and everything like that, I just had an article about it that just flat out says that he isn't starter material in the NFL. He's good backup depth at best, and he has 4 sacks in the last 2 games. Which, if you guys read a Twitter thread about that I had, not all sacks are created equal, but that's a whole other issue that we can get into later. It's execution. I mean, I've seen it mentioned very few times that the Broncos defense held the Chiefs to 0 third down conversions on 8 attempts, I think it was, which I do have an issue with third down conversion too, which I'll get into real quick. Is obviously you got to get the stops on the first and second down. So you can have a low third down, but it doesn't matter if you're just allowing them to move the ball on first and second down.
Right.
But, I mean, the defense, they played it well. I mean, it ended up being one of Mahomes' not worst games, but definitely a down game for him when all things are considered. But they didn't need him to have a great game either. So it kind of balances out. It's like, how would this defense have really done if Patrick Mahomes needed to be on for the game? That is something I'm actually kind of curious about. Obviously, we may see it next time. We may not. We don't know. But this defense has definitely been outliving what the expectations were for this defense after Von Miller got hurt. I can't remember how many times I saw people saying that not just the season's ruined and everything like that. The defense is going to be the worst in the NFL, blah, 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 blah. I can't tell you how many times I saw that. But guess what, guys? That has not been the case whatsoever.
Yeah. Another just quick point here before I go back. I'm going to go grab some of these comments really fast. Another quick point that I want to get out there is just the points per drive allowed. The Broncos defense on points per drive allowed, 10th best, 1.93 points per drive allowed. Like, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Another top 10 statistic for this defense. It doesn't matter where you look. You got total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, yards per play, fewest first downs allowed, 111. That's the third fewest first downs allowed in the NFL this year. They're 13th in blitz percentage right now, which is a point that you actually expanded on earlier with Alexander Johnson. There's just so much to like with this Broncos defense.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, let's see here. Let's go to the chat stream really fast. Richie Rich coming in here, and he says, James, if we are allowing teams to start on average to 33 and then allow a kickoff return for a touchdown, that is a major issue. Absolutely it is. And that's an issue that goes twofold there. That's an issue on the offensive side of the football for not moving the ball down the field and flipping field position when they have to. It's also on the special teams as well for, Sam Martin, excuse me. He's been decent. Don't get me wrong, he's been punting the ball pretty well, but the coverage units have not been able to stop these returns. In fact, the Broncos have the 32nd ranked special teams unit per Pro Football Reference this year. Like, they're just not. It's not only one issue for this Broncos team right now. It is definitely multitude of things going on. The injuries definitely don't help the offense, but you cannot blame the defense anymore, guys. There's absolutely no question you cannot blame the defense. James Campbell coming in here. Latest DVOA per Football Outsiders totaled negative 15.8%. They're ranked 28th. Negative 28.1 on offense, number 31. I'm guessing this is the offense here. Negative 8.7 on defense. Negative is better only on defense. It's less expected points. There you go. And number 7, let's see, negative 4.7 on special teams is number 27 overall. So that just kind of expands on the point that I have there.
Yeah. And somebody mentioned a thing about me being special teams corner. You don't want me as special teams corner. I don't get special teams that well. Like,
there he is, Richie Rich.
Special teams is the one thing that's like, what I know is you don't leave your lane and you never get your back to the returner. Those are the two things I know about special teams. And I know that the field goal kicker, you got to hit it to the two yellow goalposts. That's about it. Special teams that I know.
Yeah, coverage units on special teams are really hard to grade. They're actually kind of hard to do.
That's why I don't grade them.
Yeah, I can kind of draw you up like a fake punt or a fake field goal or something like that, but not really. Like, special teams is so hard, and you have to. A lot of that is just discipline. It is. It comes down to discipline, knowing your role, staying in your lane on your coverage units, and trying to pick up a block and hit a hole as a returner. Like that. That's special teams to a T.
And don't let the returner dictate. This is also a thing that goes with receivers and blocking, and something that I have a big issue with Deshaun Hamilton is if you are run blocking as a receiver, if you are defending against the return, you don't let them dictate. You know where your help is on special teams, and you dictate where they go. It's run defense. You dictate where they go. If you have help to the inside, you take the outside, you force them into your help. As a blocker on the run game, you don't sit there and let them dictate which side they're going to attack, because that's what they want to do. I mean, it's the flip side of the defense. It's just the opposite of it. Is all that is. You want to sit there and dictate where the defender goes, because for what's best for the running back, you want him to go away from where the defensive help is.
Mm-hmm. All right, Muhammad coming in here on Super Chat, $2 Super. Thanks, Muhammad, for joining us, man. We appreciate that. Do you see the Broncos trading for anyone with the upcoming trade deadline?
No. I really don't. There's a couple of trades I hope they do. The sense I get from what I've heard and everything is that they just kind of want to carry most of their cap. They want to keep those draft picks. We've talked about this a lot on here. The Broncos are kind of have some issues with cash flow. I know they have plenty of cap space, but cash flow is a big issue here. I don't think that they want to bring in anybody that's expensive or anything like that. And keeping those draft picks, keeping what cap space they have to carry over to next year, all that stuff can help them with their cash flow issues, with the cap dropping next year because of everything that's going on. Like, I just don't see them wanting to do anything like that to jeopardize those areas of the team.
Yeah, that's fair. The one player that I actually watched last night playing in the Atlanta Falcons game, and shout out to James Campbell for this one, for mentioning it to us in the group chat. Foye Oluokun, I think is how you pronounce his name, that linebacker from the Atlanta Falcons. That guy is your prototypical Vic Fangio linebacker, man. He's big, he's built, he's got some length, decent coverage guy, tackles really well. That's a guy that if the Broncos want to go and they save like a 5th-round draft pick to go and help their coverage linebackers, that's the guy that I'm going to go towards. Now, on the flip side of this conversation, Eric, do you see the Broncos trading anyone away?
I think that they will, depending on what happens on the game on Sunday. That should preface this with anything. I could see them, one player, no matter what happens, I could see them shopping Deshaun Hamilton. But other than that, it all really depends. If they beat the Chargers, I think that's about it. If they lose to the Chargers, I could see them really putting out phone calls for Shelby Harris, Justin Simmons, and Garrett Bowles with a very strict price on them. That needs to be said, because just the fact, again, cash flow, they're upcoming free agents. I think that they know that they'll probably be able to keep one of the 3. So they might look at two of them, get those draft picks for this year instead of waiting for a potential compensatory pick in 2022. That's about the only thing I would say is possible is those three, but it really depends on what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, it's just hard to predict right now because with the way that our boy number 72 is playing, the one that we slapped the table for, like Bills fans jumping on foldable tables in the middle of a December tailgate, we pounded that table. He's been playing great football, by the way, guys. The number 1 rated offensive player for the Denver Broncos, by the way. With him, it's hard to see because he's in the contract here. The Broncos denied that 5th-year option, and it's time for them to go out and pay the guy. And we just watched Ronnie Stanley get paid 5 years, $113 million or something like that. He's not going to touch that figure. Let's just be fair. It was
like $17.5 million average per year basis, and Bulls isn't going to touch that.
No, 15, 16, 17 per year, maybe 15, 16 probably is the best there. What would you do? 2 years, $15 million, give him a little bit of longevity there. He's 28, 29 years old, something like that.
He'll be 29 in May.
Okay, so it's 28 years old. We'll give him a 2-year deal, see what happens. Maybe even a 1-year prove it deal. Like, hey, we saw the 1 year.
I'd be comfortable going with a 4-year deal.
Really?
With the guarantees in the first 2 years, because that way, if it reverts back to how he was playing beforehand, then you have easy ways out.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. 4-year deal. Give him a decent, sizable guarantee. Give him some good bonus money potentially there for performance. Give him some potential guarantees for later on. Team options, whatever, just not if a longer deal just for that security there, because I think with Garrett Bowles, I think the security for a job will go a long way for him, especially with all the uncertainty over the last 3 years. But yeah, that's the route I would go with him.
Yeah, and that just to kind of elaborate on my point here, Justin Simmons is taking a step back. So if there's any player that's probably the most tradable player for this Broncos team to get rid of at the trade deadline, it's 31. Like, let's be real here. Justin Simmons, everyone's like, he's on the franchise tag, obviously. Let's get him a long-term deal. He's actually regressed this year. Whereas Garrett Bowles, who has higher positional value, plain and simple, left tackle is a higher positional value than a safety is. And he's playing elite football right now, top 5 level football at the left tackle position. Whereas Justin Simmons, yeah, he's got an expensive cap number. He's going to want a big deal. He's also still a top, 10 maybe safety in the league. That's some capital you can work with if you want to move on from Justin Simmons, go into the draft or find a free agent, get a little bit cheaper at the position because you got Kareem Jackson under another year as well. Like there's something you can do with Justin Simmons there. And if there's anyone that I do see the Broncos potentially, I'm not saying that they will, but if they do move on from anyone, it would be Justin Simmons, in my personal opinion. Base Gaze coming in here on Super Chat. What's up, dude? Thanks for joining the show. Here we go, Eric. We didn't want to do this.
We really didn't want to talk about Locke a lot on this, guys. Both of us feel that's been beat to death. I know I saw somebody else ask about it and everything, and James mentioned it. I have an article about Drew Lock about why the Broncos can't be overly patient with him.
Yep.
If you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead and go read that. I also have an article out there criticizing Pat Shurmur for the lack of use of motion in this offense, which can help Drew Lock.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and get to this question.
All right, so should Pat Shurmur, quote, dumb down the offense for Locke? 70.6 passer rating since the Texans game last year. That first half that he had was phenomenal. 3 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions. We beat Kansas City with any other quarterback at the moment. Now, that one I don't necessarily agree with. However, I don't agree that the Broncos beat Kansas City last week. It wasn't, by the way, all on the offense.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just totally realized what his picture is. And that is awesome.
It's amazing.
I just totally realized what it was.
Amazing profile. It's the perfect troll account here, especially for what we do here at Dove Valley Deep Divers, breaking down the Broncos. No, Eric and I talked about some statistics at length before we came into the show, and it's not necessarily that the offense is too complicated for what Drew Lock is doing. And I actually kind of spoke to this on Broncos Country tonight on Monday. If you guys get a chance, go check that out as well. It's not necessarily what the Broncos offense is doing wrong or what Pat Shurmur is doing wrong. It's what Drew Lock is doing wrong. It's going back to the injuries. The injuries to Cortland Sutton, the injury to Noah Fant where he missed some time. Without even Drew Lock playing a game, he missed time without Drew Lock on the field anyways. KJ Hamler missing some time without Drew Lock on the field. Obviously, Elijah Wilkinson coming in. Are we making excuses for Drew Lock, or are we Like, or are there actually reasons? No, we are making excuses for Drew Lock. Those are excuses. Those are things that are outside of his control. What are in control for Drew Lock are things that he can control. Those are reasons why he's struggling with this offense. He's locking on to his first read. He needs to move his eyes and side adjust down the field. He's missing open receivers underneath because he wants to be that gunslinger and sling the rock down the field. He's not trusting his protection up front. Because, guys, let's be honest here. The Broncos' offensive line up front has actually been playing very well. Drew Lock, I counted it 3 times in the first quarter and a half, 3 times against the Kansas City Chiefs. Drew Lock escaped a clean pocket in which he could have stepped up, side adjusted, and hit a crossing route over the middle of the field for a sizable gain, including one to Noah Fant that would have went for 1,000 yards. I'm fairly certain Noah Fant would have still been running today at this particular point. Honestly, it's not an excuse anymore. Shermer can do a lot of things to help him by calling more play action late in the game, using some more pre-snap motion, helping his sight adjustment up front. But no, Drew Lock has to just play better, plain and simple.
Yeah. This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
So to answer the question is, no, you don't dumb down the offense, because what Pat Shurmur is asking Drew Lock to be is he's asking him to be an actual NFL quarterback. Pat Shurmur's scheme, I've seen a lot of this, is Pat Shurmur's scheme doesn't fit Drew Lock. It doesn't fit his strengths. That's complete nonsense. Drew Lock in college, he was most efficient working with 3 wide receivers. So this whole complaint about 3 wide receivers, it doesn't fit Drew Lock, just gets thrown out the window. This whole thing about, we're throwing deep too much. Well, Drew Lock has an arm. Drew Lock is supposed to be able to hit those deep balls. That's supposed to be a strength of Drew Lock. That's what they're calling it to. It's just excuses after excuses that's coming with Drew Lock, and quite frankly, I'm a little bit tired of it. This doesn't mean that Drew Lock can't turn it around. I'm not saying Drew Lock's a bust. I'm not saying Denver's done with him. He's got 10 games to fix it. The issue, and he just can't. He's got to stop making the same mistakes over and over again. Look, last year the offense that Rick Scangarello was running for him was simple one-read stuff. And that's not stuff that you can do and have a successful offense with. Because guess what, guys? The offense last year doing that still struggled. Drew Lock had issues closing out games. Everybody highlights that Houston Texans game. What did the Denver Broncos do about halfway through the third quarter to the end of the game? Jack squat. They really did next to nothing. The defense had to make sure they won that game with a couple of key turnovers and adding, I believe, a touchdown themselves or close to a touchdown return. I can't remember that Kareem Jackson play. I can't remember what happened. And here's another thing is, he's not a rookie anymore. I understand he's only played 9 games, guys, and that doesn't what qualifies you as a rookie. He still had all the rookie stuff last year. He still had all that learning process last year. He's in his second year in the NFL. He is not a rookie. 9 games or not, it doesn't change that fact. Drew Lock is not a rookie. Drew Lock, it is time to put up or shut up. Denver cannot sit here and roll with him. Give him 2021 if he continues to look bad. He's got 10 games to turn it around. They know what's wrong. Drew Lock, Vic Fangio, Pat Shurmur, Noah Fant, they have all stated what Drew Lock is doing wrong and what he needs to fix. If this was an issue of coaching, then Pat Shurmur, he's not calling that out because he's not seeing it. He's not sitting there having him work on that. They're having him work on it. Drew Lock's just not doing it. Almost 1/5 of Drew Lock's dropbacks, plays that he throws, has been deep, 20 plus. Then I hear these things of, which is second highest in the NFL, by the way, and he's only 1 of 3 quarterbacks above 15%. It's 19.6% to be exactly. 20 deep passes of 20 plus yards on 102 attempts. You can't be successful with an offense or doing that, but here's the thing is that's not what the offense is exactly designed to do, is always go deep. This offense Pat Shurmur's offense has and always will be a spread them out, give quarterbacks simpler reads by spreading them out, and letting the quarterback go make those reads. But Drew Lock's not. Drew Lock's read is the first read wide receiver. That's it. If he's not there, he's scrambling out of the pocket. All 3 plays that Lance was talking about was he has to come off his first read. It's not there. He immediately scrambles. He leaves a clean pocket. Those are all issues that Drew Lock has to fix on. Drew Lock has a lot of talent. Drew Lock has a lot of upside.
I'm going to stop you. I want to stop you and interrupt you here, and I apologize for this. Where Vidal coming in here is we were going for Drew Lock's throat today, I see. No, not going for Drew Lock's throat. We're pointing out the inefficiencies in his game. And this is something that everybody should be able to see right now. And yes, I firmly believe that Drew Lock is going to get at least the next 10 games unless he gets hurt. And I firmly believe that unless he starts to turn his game around, then it might be time to look at a different option moving forward. But also at the same time, it's fair to be critical. It is fair to be a critical analyst, which is what we like to do here on Dove Valley Deep Divers and give you those deep takes. We're not just going to sit here and be Drew Lock stands, like there's a lot more that goes into this. Now, Eric, I want you to go ahead and just continue on there. I'm sorry about that.
And he comes in and says, it's just a joke. He's just pissed. No, we understand that it was a joke and everything like that. We just wanted to make it clear is that we're not trying to eviscerate Drew Lock or anything like that. And by no means do I think it's only Drew Lock's fault. I mean, if I did, I wouldn't have done an article about talking about what Pat Shurmur can do to be better and to better help him. Like, it's not just a one or the other thing. And so many people want to just blame Pat Shurmur, which it's not the case. Pat Shurmur is doing a lot of what Drew Lock should be able to do at this point in his NFL career. And he's just not doing it.
Yeah.
And last thing on this is like people also need to realize is that John Elway, his contract's up after 2021. Vic Fangio, he probably has 2021, but after that, depends on what the team does. They can't afford to ride with Drew Lock and keep their jobs if he doesn't turn it around.
Not only that, but it also depends on what goes
Gregory,
on.
Sorry, I just want to say this. Like, it's not being a hyperbole. It's being factual. If Drew Lock was a second-round pick, like, there's nothing tying him to Denver for a long period of time. Like, because of that, the investment's just not there for it. There's nothing tying him to him. If he doesn't turn it around, he's not the quarterback. He may be a backup quarterback, but he won't be the starter. They will go after either a guy who is a veteran, and as much as it may peeve some of you guys, it may be Matthew Stafford, it may be Matt Ryan. There's veteran options out there that they may go. Depending on where they land in the draft, there's Zach Wilson. I doubt they have a shot at him, but maybe Trevor Lawrence. I doubt they go Justin Fields. I doubt they go Trey Lance. I mean, Kyle Trask, maybe. Like, the thing is like 2021, whatever's going to happen with that is going to depend on the next 10 games. That's it. They're not set on Drew Lock for 2021 at this point because he hasn't earned it. Yeah. And I'm going to end this on just this quote, and then you can take over and we can change the subject. I have stated this multiple times. Until you know you have a quarterback, you are in need of a quarterback.
Yep.
Thinking you may have a quarterback is not having a quarterback.
Yep. No, absolutely correct. That's something I wanted to say. That another just point to expand on this just a little bit. You were talking about John Elway and his tenure. You have Vic Fangio and his tenure. That can get shaken up, guys. We are still watching the Broncos ownership situation play itself out right now. And the Pat Bowlen Trust, Joe Ellis, John Elway, all the guys up there, that could be taken care of before we know any answers as far as what Drew Lock's future is concerned. We might know answers before we know what Vic Fangio's future is concerned. If the Broncos get a new owner and he says, nope, we're going to blow this up and go in a completely different direction, and the way that Drew Lock's playing right now, we're not talking about Drew Lock in a Broncos uniform anymore. We're talking about him as a backup quarterback somewhere else. Plain and simple. I saw Chase. Go ahead. Sorry,
I saw one more thing real quick. Justin Herbert hasn't seen a really great defense. Justin Herbert went out and against the Kansas City Chiefs, who just completely eviscerated. I can't speak right now. Just completely destroyed Drew Lock. I mean, it's the reason why we're having this part of the reason why we're having this conversation anyways, with what they did to Drew Lock. Justin Herbert went up against them, threw over 300 yards, nearly led them to a win. on a game plan that was built for a completely different style of quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, because the Chargers medical staff is completely incompetent. And if you guys really want me to go off on something, I can go off on the Chargers medical staff because of how incompetent they are. But anyways, let's move this on. Real quick, Chase Wallner, we missed the super chat earlier. James, thank you for bringing that for us.
$5 super from Chase here. I was actually going to grab this. That was where I was going.
Sorry.
Where do you rank last Sunday amongst the best defensive performances versus Mahomes so far? And honestly, you know what? That's got to be at least top 2. Let's be real here. Patrick Mahomes in that Chiefs offense, and yeah, there's something to be said for the turnovers. There's something to be said for the special teams gaffes, and that Patrick Mahomes didn't have to be the Patrick Mahomes that we've known him to be. But at the same time, they held the Chiefs offense to less than 285 total yards of offense, and Patrick Mahomes only threw for 200 yards passing. Plain and simple. And that Broncos defense was not the reason they lost the football game, guys. We just got done breaking it down for you. That defensive performance by the Denver Broncos on this past Sunday was phenomenal. They didn't allow the deep shots. They let Patrick Mahomes kind of dink and dunk him, and they took advantage of some short field position. They really did. They got what? They got the flea flicker fumble by Melvin Gordon, who threw the ball over Drew Lock's head, which that play call in and of itself had me triggered. They had the other fumble where Melvin Gordon fumbled the ball. The Chiefs recovered and took down. I think they scored a field goal on that. They had the pick six as well. And a couple of short fields on just special teams gas. Again, they had a 21-yard onside kick recovery return that set the Chiefs up inside the 20-yard line. And Patrick Mahomes wasn't even on the field at that point. Who was it, Matt Moore? Or what is their backup quarterback? Who was that drove down and scored a touchdown? Like, when you have negative field position at, like, the 20-yard line and you're giving up – this is actually another statistic for you on the Broncos. They are the 6th fewest yards per drive allowed in the NFL, 29.1 yards per drive allowed. It's not the defense's fault, guys. Like the Broncos defense against Mahomes specifically actually played very well. And they got 4 sacks.
And we got a couple other super chats we got to catch up on here. Stimate with the $4.99. Thank you, Stu, for that. He ended up sending a super sticker, which we can't see through the chat, unfortunately. But I'm sure it'd be awesome, whatever it is. And then Paul comes in and he says, with a $20 donation, thank you, Paul, for that. Would IR help Lock? Or would it help Lock to switch to number 7 or 18? Proud of effort on D. 10 games, agree with Eric. That's actually kind of funny. I mean, obviously, I don't think Elway would ever agree to that. Elway's ego is like much higher than mine. And I doubt they'll want to sit there and retire Manning or unretire Manning and all that stuff like that. Very funny, Paul. But yeah, it's like 10 games. Like that's what it is. Like he's got 10 games, and just touch on this too. Is like everybody's sitting here talking about the vet quarterbacks that I mentioned or everything like that. The thing is like if they go get a vet quarterback because Drew Lock shows that he doesn't earn 2020 or 2021 yet, I don't think they'll give up on Drew Lock. He'll probably stick as the backup. And guess what, guys? Even with him as the backup, they can still work with him and try to develop him and see what he can do. And then maybe he ends up getting 2022 and going from there. Don't know. Obviously, way too far in the head to discuss. But it's not just going to be a thing of, oh, it's just a vet quarterback. That's just it. There's no backup plan. They would have a backup plan, either Drew Lock or a differently drafted quarterback.
Yeah. I'm going to grab this comment from this Facebook user, and unfortunately we can't see your name, bud. Whoever you are, make sure you reach out to us on the Mile High Huddle super fan group page and let us know who you are. If Locke was a true second-year quarterback, he would have 23-plus games under his belt. Instead, he has 9. I want to just point, and this is not fair to direct this question in this particular direction, but you ever heard of a guy named Aaron Rodgers who sat for 2 years behind Brett Favre before he ever saw the field? He was a first-round pick.
He wasn't a rookie when he took over.
No, he wasn't a rookie when he took over.
But by that logic, he would be. But
yeah, exactly. Like, if he's a true second-year quarterback, he'd have 23-plus games under his belt. Instead, he has 9. Okay, that's fine. I understand where you're coming from there. And yeah, he is still within 10 starts. But this is something that I talked about with Eric before we went live, and I know Eric doesn't necessarily like this argument, but look at what's going on in Cincinnati, guys. Look at what's going on in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert. You watch Joe Burrow play the quarterback position, and he has 7 starts, and there is not a doubt in your mind that Joe Burrow is the guy. You watch Justin Herbert play in his 5 games for the Los Angeles Chargers, and there's no doubt he is the guy. Yeah. In eight full games and a 9th where he played the first half of the first quarter. In fact, it was actually the first 5 minutes of the first quarter. There are still questions if Drew Lock is the guy or not. That's about as apples to apples of a comparison as you can get. Yeah, young starting quarterbacks within their first 10 games. And Drew Lock, we still don't know if he's the guy or not. Plain simple.
And I wish I could remember what his Twitter handle was. Somebody said this to me on Twitter, and it was just very apt and on point and just perfect thing to say is Drew Lock's strengths are looking like weaknesses. And that's not on the coaching staff. That's on him. Pat Shurmur's game plans, while there have been issues, while they haven't been perfect, have been very solid, if not good. And Drew Lock's not going out there and executing. And it's not just Drew Lock, guys. Jeff Driscoll, he's not a quarterback that should ever start again. Brett Rippon's mistakes, he went out there and he executed very well inside Pat Shurmur's scheme until he made 3 costly mistakes. And those were mistakes that weren't on the offensive coordinator. They were on the quarterback. So when you look at these other guys, I understand the offense has been having an issue, but you can look at Jeff Driscoll, you can look at Brett Rippon, and you can see the issues are with the quarterbacks. But it's not the case with Drew Lock. It's not adding up. You're adding 1 + 1 and getting 27.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's
anyways.
100% true.
Let's talk about the draft.
I like the
draft. Let's talk about the draft.
I got one more.
I don't think anything.
I got one super chat here. It's from Tom El Greco coming in. And he says, Locke looks nervous and uncomfortable in the pocket. I don't see that swagger. He looks lost. Thanks, guys. Hey, Tom, we appreciate you for joining the show tonight. And you're absolutely right. And like I said earlier, I watched the first quarter and a half of the Chiefs game over again before I went on Broncos country tonight on Monday. And like I said, 3 plays where Drew Lock looked uncomfortable in the pocket, escaped towards the boundary, and he didn't even push the ball down the field.
First read.
Yep. That's actually a very, very valid point. But,
sorry, not to interrupt, but
he got pushed off his first read and he escaped a clean pocket in which all he has to do is step forward or slide step away from the minimal pressure that's actually there. But instead, he turns and bails out of the pocket, runs towards the sideline trying to extend the play, but he's running towards his first read the entire way. And then when the first read still doesn't come open, instead of taking off and running downfield or side adjusting and finding somebody coming over the middle again, he throws the ball 10 yards or 10 rows deep into the stands. If you want to be that gunslinger, if you're going to extend a play like that, you got to be willing to push the ball down the field. And Drew Lock is not doing that. Go back to Patrick Mahomes. What does Patrick Mahomes do well? When he gets outside of the structure of the play, he looks to push the ball down the field. And he keeps the ball in bounds, sometimes on some stupid plays. But at the same time, at least he's still taking those chances as a gunslinger. Everyone wants to call Drew Lock a gunslinger, but he's not being a gunslinger.
Yeah, and a couple more things on that is to highlight the locking on from Drew Lock. Just look at the play action rollout that he tried throwing to Nick Van Nett, who was triple covered when Noah Fant was open up right beneath him. Nick Van Nett was the main read. He was the first read. He never looks away, never sees Noah Fant. And additionally is actually, crap, I kind of forgot what my other point was that I was going to say. Well, whatever. Chase Wolner asked how many snaps Nigel Bradham played. He played 17 special team snaps. That's it. There's been, from what I've heard, there's been some issues with him picking up the defense.
Nigel Bradham, I haven't really paid attention to Nigel Bradham because I'm more focused on watching Josie Jewell struggle in coverage. Outside of that Jets game, he's been absolutely terrible.
Hey, no, he was actually pretty good against the Patriots game, which I know you missed.
Yeah, I did miss the Patriots game, and I do want to.
He's been far better than Alexander Johnson has been this year. Alexander Johnson hasn't been that great this year.
I actually
want to hear me go off on another player. I can go off on Alexander Johnson. How bad he's been. Outside of a blitzer, it's been it.
I actually did some looking into some coverage linebackers and whatnot, just trying to find a way that the Broncos can get Noah Fant incorporated going into this Chargers game. You know, let's do that. Let's break down some of this Chargers game.
Real quick, last lock thing is Franklin Lewis comes in. Mahomes had his entire first year, played 1 game, but when he started, he took off and threw 6 touchdowns and really showed he was a quarterback. Locke at least played 5 games his rookie year. Now, year 2, he has 1 touchdown. Drew Lock has as many touchdowns to the opposing team as he does to his own. Yeah,
that's not good. That is what you call hashtag not good. Anyway, so I was looking at some linebacker statistics and coverage specifically, and got to looking around just trying to find a way that the Broncos can get another key matchup to win. I actually have the 5 key matchups to watch up on milehighhuddle.com. It was published earlier this morning. There's a video on YouTube as well. Go check that out if you guys get a chance. But the one thing that I wanted to see was, especially with Noah Fant potentially coming back healthy, who is their coverage linebacker, the guy that is dictated the most in coverage? And outside of Kenneth Murray, it is Kaiser White, who has been literally the worst coverage linebacker in the NFL this year. But if you look a couple notches lower than that, Josie Jewell's sitting right there. I mean, 6th, 7th, 8th at the bottom. Like, he's been better than Alexander Johnson, but with the way that I minimize the snaps down, Alexander Johnson hasn't played nearly as much coverage snaps as Josie Jewell has, so he didn't qualify for a lot of these statistics. But I think it was like 190, I think is what I narrowed it down to, coverage snaps. Josie Jewell was the 8th worst coverage linebacker in the NFL this year, just for example.
All right. You two are not true Bronco fans. You don't get to dictate how people are as Bronco fans. You don't get to dictate if we're Bronco fans or not. There's no one right way to be a Broncos fan. You don't like watching us? Fine. I know we're not for everyone. So, hey, man, just don't come in.
Yeah, I don't know where that comment came from. But I appreciate you jumping in and joining the show anyways. All right, let's break down some of this Chargers tape here really fast, Eric. And I know you probably have got a lot of things to say about this. Let's get your 5 key matchups to watch. Who are the 5 guys that you want to see the Broncos take advantage of and go out and potentially get a win against? Yeah, take advantage of.
Oh, I was going to say is not take advantage of or get taken advantage of is Joey Bosa. Like,
oh yeah,
you want to shut him down. Kaiser White, obviously, I mean, with how bad he's been. And when I was scouting the Chargers a little bit earlier this week, is just very problematic in coverage. I mean, a lot of the issues I see with Alexander Johnson just not being in the right place, I'm seeing with Kaiser White. Kenneth Murray is another one. This is the perfect game to use play action a lot because Kenneth Murray, he'll be behind the line of scrimmage almost every single time you run a play action. Dude bites so hard on play action. So definitely attack those linebackers. I mean, I think this is another good game to really utilize Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam, and not even deep. Utilize them in that like 5 to 15 yard range. Move the ball. So what if you got to be a little bit of dink and dunk? Like, that is the best way to attack this Chargers defense. And steer clear of Desmond King. He has a chip on his shoulder, and he's been playing some really good football this year for the Chargers. Another one is try and take advantage of that offensive line. Watching them, that offensive line stands out as not – it's very similar to the Broncos offensive line, where every single play they have 1 or 2 guys who do extremely well, but overall it's just a rough unit to watch.
Yeah.
So I definitely would try to take advantage of that offensive line and just try and confuse Justin Herbert. Like Vic Fangio, Bill Belichick, these are 2 guys that typically get hailed as young, inexperienced quarterback killers, so to speak. So let's see what Vic Fangio can dial up with this defense to confuse Justin Herbert and potentially make some mistakes, because with what we've seen, this offense is going to need a lot of help.
Yeah. That's actually the biggest point that I make, and it's the video that I was specifically referring to on YouTube. Is the key matchup to watch is Justin Simmons and his bounce back against Justin Herbert. Go and check that out, guys. There's some great information in that as well. But I 100% agree with you, and you got to try to confuse Justin Herbert. That's the biggest key here, and he hasn't been confused very much. He has not been confused, has not been forced into mistakes. He's got 12 touchdown passes in 5 games. He's playing amazing football. That's the biggest key to me. And then the other thing, and this is actually some information that came out after I had written the article, the Chargers offensive line is dealing with injuries big time right now. In fact, their left tackle is down to their 4th string guy. So Bradley Chubb better eat. Like, let's just be really Bradley Chubb.
We know Bradley Chubb can beat up on backup tackles.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw that with the Jets game. That was his best game of the year. And he beat up on what eventually ended up being the number 3 tackle for the Jets. We know he can beat up on tackles. It's what he can do against starters that we have yet to see this year.
Yep. All right, Super Chat here. Base Gaze coming back in here with another $5 Super. What's up, dude? Thanks for that. We appreciate you. Are you confident in our running back room long term. Concerned about Lindsey's durability and contract. Melvin Gordon may be cut next year. And thoughts on Etienne and Chuba Hubbard. Travis Etienne was a guy that I fell in love with last year. I absolutely love Travis Etienne. Chuba
Hubbard was an
idiot
idiot to return.
He was. In fact, Travis Etienne might have been the second running back taken. He might
I think
actually.
He could have pushed. I think he could have pushed for the first.
You want to talk about a guy that's competent in the backfield, not only as a pass protector, but coming out of the backfield as a receiver as well. I mean, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love CEH. He was my dude. But Travis Etienne was a close second there. And Najee Harris as well. Najee Harris is that guy. Don't sleep on Najee Harris from Alabama. What's that one from Ohio State that James had? The Trey Sermon kid?
Trey Sermon, yeah. Injuries are kind of concerning with him, but
the talent
late round undrafted guy, I like him. Dude can block, man. He's a mean blocker.
No, yeah, absolutely.
I like Chuba Hubbard, however you say his name. I say this every week. Terrible with names. Eventually, I'll learn how to say it. I really like him. I think that Philip Lindsay probably won't be in Denver beyond next year at the most. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get moved sometime this offseason. There's been actually a lot of chatter going around about how even if the Broncos use a second-round tender on him, he's a restricted free agent, that there will be quite a few teams interested in him, even with that, which to me is insane, but we'll see what happens there.
I actually got called out on that take a couple weeks ago by saying that, I don't necessarily see Philip Lindsay being a long-term future of this. And even though he's a restricted free agent, and someone came up and said, well, where do you see him? Who do you see signing Philip Lindsay? I was like, whoever signs him on the restricted free agent tender, because the Broncos are going to tag him. Plain and simple. Yeah. They're going to keep him on the cheap production. Hopefully it's at a second-round tender. Because I do think that there's enough value with a guy like Philip Lindsay that someone might be willing to do that. I doubt it. That's the biggest. I doubt that happening. Because the second-round pick for a Philip Lindsay, who's going to be 30 years old here soon, and has been
and then he's now dealing with a concussion, and he dealt with the turf toe, and he's dealt with injuries every single year of his year.
But let's go back to the biggest flaws about Philip Lindsay: his diminutive stature and the fact that he runs a style that doesn't fit. Very physical style runner. He doesn't fit his body type. And look what happened. I'm not saying that was the biggest reason that he got shot in the head. It is what it is, and it just sucks to see something like that. But a guy like that, where he had 1,000 career touches at Colorado, and comes in the NFL, he had a lot of touches in his first 2 seasons, and now the injury concerns are starting to show up. Do you want to be tied to this guy for the long term, or do you want to try to get whatever value you can get out of him? So that's my biggest thing there.
So back to his question. I'm not confident in the running back room long term whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Lance, before we get out here, do you mind if I rapid fire some questions, comments real quick?
Let me grab this one from Paul really fast because we've got a super chat here right now. Let me grab that really fast. He says, I love Vic, but he needs a signature win. And you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yep,
he does need to have – there was a lot of signature losses in Vic Fangio's tenure right now. And it was something that I talked about what was it, after the Tennessee game. It was after the Tennessee game. And I was like, you know what, maybe it is time to start talking about Vic Fangio on the hot seat here just a little bit. I understand he's going into year 2, and they're going to give him a chance. But at the same time, there's a valid question here of him not being able to coach this team out of critical coaching situations. So, yes, he does need to have a signature win. Beating Kansas City would have been that signature win last week. Beating the Chargers right now, I don't know if that's a signature win because the Chargers are coming in at 2-4. But if the offense comes out and the defense still continues to play well and he coaches them through critical situations in a division game at home, that could be a decent win, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. He needs a signature win. And the way Lance put it, that he's got a lot of signature losses, is brutal, but it's true. I mean, the Jaguars game, the Bears game, what other games? There was another, the Colts game, the Vikings game,
the Minnesota game. You're up 20-0.
The Titans game, there's plenty. So rapid firing questions off or comments off real quick. Flo asks, sorry if you guys have answered this question. Where do you think John Ross will go? Honestly, I have no idea. There's plenty of options for him. I think that he can really do well with the New England. He can do well with Green Bay. And I think that the Bengals saying that they want to keep on to him and just let him walk is really stupid. It's just dumb comment. James says, I'd love to get Etienne, but I don't want to use the first round capital to get him. I agree. I like him quite a bit. I think his return was really stupid, and that's actually a big reason why I wouldn't. Just added mileage on his body. Let's see here. Justin says, ignore the chat. I gotta acknowledge the chat. That's part of what doing this, actually. David Fang, it's still too early to see if Flock is the guy, but everyone's starting to have doubts. This is exactly true. It's too early to know if he's the guy for sure, and it's too early to give up completely on him. And while I was being, I guess, overly critical or whatever you want to call it, not being a true Broncos fan earlier, the thing is like making excuses for his play does no one any good. Can you imagine if the coaching staff went in there and be like, oh, you played a bad game, but like the weather was bad and we have all these injuries, like, or the New England, and like in the New England game, like your receivers drop. Can you imagine if the coaching staff did that?
Yeah, you got to be critical. And I want to say this, and this is something that I said on Broncos Country tonight as well, was it's not time to pull the plug. And I'm going to make this abundantly clear. I'm not saying that the Broncos need to pull the plug on Drew Lock. Not even saying that they need to go and bench him or trade him, cut him. It's nothing like that. He's going to get the next 10 games. But maybe instead of pulling the plug, you start to reach a little bit towards that extension cord. Not grab a hold of it yet, not get ready to pull, but you reach toward it just a little bit. Because you know what? We're seeing the same things over and over with him, and it's still the same bad process, bad result, or bad process with decent result, and sometimes bad process, good result. We need to start seeing more good result with bad good
process with good results.
Good process, good results, and even sometimes good process with bad results, like that Michael Ojemudia pass.
That would be a step forward.
That would be a step forward. Good process, bad result. Michael Ojemudia on the pass interference call against the Jets. Perfect textbook coverage. Draws a flag.
Yeah.
Good process, bad result. I'll take that.
I would say it was good. Good process, good result, and the rest were stupid.
Yeah.
Let's see here. There was one other comment here that I really wanted to get to. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Darian P. What is the main reason for Green Bay's improvement this year? When watching them last year compared to this year?
Garrett Bowles. That's Garrett Bowles. I guarantee you that's Garrett Bowles.
Oh, yeah. Do you mean Garrett Bowles? I see GBS, and I immediately think Green Bay. But if it's Garrett Bowles, the main reason why I think that he's improving is that Mike Munchak, and we talked about this a lot in the offseason, Mike Munchak and Chris Cooper, they finally found ways to get through to him with his learning disability and get him to understand what he was doing and how he was doing things wrong. There was also, and I've talked about this a lot too in videos and stuff like that, is they changed what type of technique that they're teaching him, which I think is a huge benefit for him. A lot more trap technique, which a lot of people, he got called for a holding on a perfectly executed trap technique, which drives me nuts. On a run play, I think it was against the Steelers or the Buccaneers. It was one of those two games. Perfect trap technique.
The Bucs game.
And he's doing that a lot, and he's executing it almost perfectly, like flawlessly. His kick slide's a lot better. It's a lot more fluid. The feet are a little bit lighter. And another big thing is he's keeping his hands up. Last year we saw a lot. You want to keep your hands up. You keep them up and at the ready. His hands kept dropping down by his hips. You're going to lose a lot when that happens. Yeah. So good to see him doing that. And I think that what it all comes down to is that for the first time in his career, NFL career anyways, well, actually his whole career.
Yeah. Going back to high school. I know you're
going back to high school. He has the same offensive line coach teaching him the same technique, telling him the same stuff. Different coaches teach different ways to do different things. And having that consistency with him, I think, has really been critical or crucial for his development. Hey, yeah. I wasn't the only one who thought Green Bay. Just saying.
I want to expand on that just really quick before we get out of here, guys. This is the last point I want to make before we get out of here for tonight. The one biggest thing, and I want you guys to go back, and Eric, I want you to go back with me as well, and this is something I've made as well multiple times. When you watched Garrett Bowles get drafted in that 2017 NFL draft, everybody said that Garrett Bowles has the athleticism, the technique that needs to have some refinement. He's raw. And he has the attitude that he wants to improve. It's going to take him 2 to 3 years to become a competent left tackle. But he has all the tools necessary. Guys, this is year 4. 2 to 3 years worth of a development period before you start to see the return on the investment. And the Broncos are year 4, and look at where we're at.
I was saying 3 or 4 years. I was saying majority of his rookie contract, you're going to have this issue. And my big thing was I had Garrett Bowles as a second-round pick. And it was partially was because of how raw he was.
Yeah.
And it's going to take the majority of his rookie contract for him to get developed and grow. And for an older prospect, that's hard to handle. Denver took the risk. It's paying off for them. And every other major analyst, 2, 3, 4 years, that's what they were saying that I was going to take.
Yeah. And like I said,
he was an inexperienced football player.
Yeah. Literally inexperienced football player. I don't think he actually started playing football until like his junior year. Then he went on a Mormon mission, got his life turned around. He was a drug addict for a while, I think, or something like that.
He only had 3 or 4 years entering the NFL of organized football.
Then he went to Snow Community College and then played a year there. I think he was an All-American at the community college level. Went to the University of Utah, all Pac-12, and I think an academic All-American as well, with a learning disability, by the way. And then a first-round pick. So when he came into the NFL, they said 2 to 3 years to develop his technique and to become that kind of a guy. Well, he was drafted at 25, 2 to 3 years. He's 28, 29 years old, where we're at right now. And look at what we're getting. Yeah. Look at what we're getting. Kenneth, jumping in here super late. I just want to say what's up, Kenneth. Thanks for joining, man. Go back. We're going to wrap it up here. Kenneth, go back and check us out and give us some comments on YouTube. We know you always do. You're actually one of the huge supporters of every Mile High Huddle and Huddle Up podcast show. So
even when you don't agree, which we appreciate.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. Now, guys, that is going to wrap it up here on an interesting episode of Dove Valley Deep Divers. We didn't necessarily
ended up talking more about a topic we didn't even want to talk about.
Yeah, we didn't want to talk about Drew Lock and the offense. We wanted to talk about the defense and name some really cool statistics, which I think we did. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us. You can follow us both on Twitter. Find me at Sanderson MHH. You can find Erick at Erick Trickel. Follow the show at DVDD_pod. It's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers. While you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle. It's the easiest way to keep in touch with what's going on, breaking news and analysis from your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities, including Erick, myself, Carl, Nick, James, Chad, Zach, everybody on the Huddle Up Network. It's the easiest way to keep on the Huddle Up Podcast Network as well. Head on over to sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle for a risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. And we didn't plug this in the first one, but guys, if you get a chance, if you're financially able to do so, head on over to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch store. That's the merch tent. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a T-shirt. I got a onesie for the baby that finally showed up the other day. There's coffee cups, face masks, hoodies, something for the guys, something for the gals, anything to suit your fancy. Head on over to huddleuppod.com and get something for yourself. And if you guys are not in a financial position and able to do so, the 3 easiest things that you guys can do to support the show, support the Huddle Up Podcast Network is, number 1, subscribe wherever you're watching this, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, whatever it may be. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video you guys see. And if you love it, you truly love what we're doing here, share it to everybody. Get it in front of as many Broncos fans as you possibly can, because those are the 3 most organic ways that you can help the show grow. Now, Erick, before we get out of here, one last question for you. How do you see this Broncos and Chargers game playing out on Sunday?
Well, it's funny you ask. You guys can go check out milehighhuddle.com and check out the MHH staff predictions and find out there. Now, I think it's going to be the defense is going to keep it close. And I say this in my prediction, and I think eventually the offense, not necessarily Lock, just to be clear, the offense is going to cause 2 turnovers, either by fumbles, maybe interceptions, maybe an interception similar to KJ Hamler where it bounced out of his hands, picked off. Whatever the case may be, 2 interceptions that end up putting the game in favor of the Chargers and them walking away. But before we get out of here, we actually did get a late super chat from Kenneth. $1.99 says, Trevor doesn't come out. Who goes number 1? I think Justin Fields will. To me, he's very similar of Cam Newton, and he can do a lot of the similar things that the Carolina Panthers did with Cam Newton. James Campbell also says, where does Mandalorian rank for you? It's one of my favorite Star Wars things ever. And my final word is, last year, about this time, I got a lot of flack for saying the Broncos, if he doesn't turn around, should move on from Rick Scangarello. He never turned around. He ended up getting moved on from. And big win for me. But guys, like I don't say this stuff to be mean. I don't say it to be overly critical. I watch the games, I break down the games, I run my own analytics, all that stuff like that, to come to the conclusions I do. And my conclusion is Drew Lock has 10 games to turn it around. If not, Denver needs to go a different way at quarterback.
I fully and 100% agree with you. And if Trevor Lawrence comes out in the draft, they need to send 2 second-round picks to the New York Jets to get Sam Darnold, guaranteed. Anyways, as far as my prediction, before we get out of here, guys, now knowing some more information, because when I made this prediction, it was last night as well, not today, when we found out that Graham Glasgow actually tested positive for the thing that should not go mentioned on this podcast. Got another 2 guys that are holding themselves away because of that same thing. One of them being DeMar Dotson, and now Joey Bosa is going to wreck this game plan if DeMar Dotson is not allowed to play. I had it, I think, 20-13 Chargers, but if DeMar Dotson's not allowed to play and Joey Bosa can go against Calvin Anderson at right tackle, that's gonna
80-0.
Yeah, it's gonna be something like 31-10. Like, quite honestly, it's going to be an ugly game. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You all stay safe. Take care. Have a great weekend. Check out Mile High Insiders tomorrow night at 6 with Nick and Luke. And we will see you guys next week.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.